Hello.
Hi.
So for anyone watching, my name's Zoe and I'm from the Mirror's Showbiz team, and you, of course, are Judi James, body language expert. So it was strictly second week over the weekend on our first elimination. We saw Kay leave the show and she was in the dance-off, and Matt was in the dance-off as well. But obviously that included professional dancers Nadia and Kay going head-to-head as well. Did you spot any body language between the two dancers that showed it was quite awkward? Afterwards, Nadia has said that it was tough going against her boyfriend in the bottom two of the series.
I think Nadia had a big advantage, which was the hair and the makeup. And I noticed that when they were waiting for the results, she kind of went into no facial expression at all. So you could see that she was blinking. She was still alive, but she went into a complete deadpan. She didn't even put on that big grin that they normally do, the sort of bravado. And Kai, bless him, I mean, he absolutely went into what's called overkill body language. He tried really hard to put on a smile and pretend that it was absolutely wonderful. I think at one point, Kay turned to him and said, "Oh, I'm sorry." And he went, "Oh, it's fine, no problem." But you could see it was such a fake smile on his face. It was like a grimace going on there. I felt so sorry for him. And then when they did the sort of dance off and afterwards, you could see that he was absolutely gutted. I think we saw them kissing right at the end in all of the crush and the crowd that was going on. But you could see that that was really very painful, I think, for both of them. But especially for Kai, because, you know, he was almost the winner last year, wasn't he, last season? And then they got struck with the COVID, didn't they? So he was that close to the glitter ball. This time, he's out first, and also he's out against his girlfriend. I mean, really, a double agony for the poor guy. But he tried not to let it show, but as I say, overkill rituals going on. That was just pure bravado. You could see how upset he was.
Do you think he's got any sense of frustration? Because obviously last year he missed out with AJ because she suffered an injury just before the final. Yeah. And maybe this year he's felt he's had a partner that because, you know, obviously when the lineup's announced, you can guess that some are going to be better than the others. Do you think he's a bit frustrated that after last year's disappointment, he's out first and doesn't have a chance to capitalise on last year's success?
Yeah, I think there's been some quite strange partnering this year in terms of who deserved a bit of a reward from last year. And I think Kay did really, really well, I have to say that. And she is lovely. I was deeply surprised when she came out in the first show, because I honestly thought she was going to be my spirit animal when it came to dance. I thought she'd be all over the place and losing her step. She was very, very good, and I was hugely impressed. But Kai, I think, would have known from the outset that she probably wasn't going to be a winner. And I think that probably he may have thought that he deserved to be in with a really good chance, or at least a kind of an easier run right through to the final this year. But as I say, Kay, I think, would have gone further in the show, and I think she lost her confidence last night. But no, Kai would have realised that pretty much. But there again, I wonder whether Nadia now with Matt is, I mean, I love watching Matt. He's a body language banquet for me. He's so full of emotion, but I think Nadia probably realises now she's got some serious work to do if she's going to get him through the competition. But at least she was with a very, very big name. And as I say, Kai would have had his work cut out, particularly as there's so many excellent, almost professional level dancers in the show. So you have to feel for the man.
Yeah, 100%. Speaking of Matt, he's survived another week. You pointed out, as we were chatting beforehand, his It Takes Two interview. He kept touching his head. Was that do you think he was surprised he was saved, or do you think he expected it? Because a lot of people had really high expectations of him going in.
Yeah, and I think Matt must have done as well, actually. I mean, you know, he is this sort of big star coming into the show in a way. And I think he has got very high expectations of winning. His gesticulation, he's fascinating. I find him absolutely fascinating. And you're absolutely right. When he was on It Takes Two, a gesture that he keeps using is to put his hands here. He is very much a thinker. He's strategic. He overthinks possibly what he's doing in this show. I think he's working it all out. He's trying to work out the best way to win, the best way to dance properly, the best way to sell himself. You know, he'd even said about the fact that he'd be doing those spray on white trousers. I think he said that if he gets the glitter ball, I don't know, he's going to drop his trousers or something like that. So I think he's thinking. And the worry for me is because he's going a little bit too intellectual on the whole thing and maybe overthinking the whole thing. He's quite emotionally closed apart from that. When he was sitting with Nadia, he had his leg crossed away from her. He put both his hands on his thighs. He only really turned around to engage with her when she was boosting his confidence. So he obviously understands that he needs to feed off other people's confidence booster for him. But no, I think his overthinking is probably causing a problem with his performance. I think in a way, he probably needs to just make mistakes and stop worrying about being too much of a perfectionist and just start enjoying the routines a little bit more. You can always see every sinew is kind of tense trying to get it right, and that won't do him too many favors. And I believe he will have been crushed by what happened this week as well. I don't know how Nadia is going to get a mop or a shovel and scoop his ego up and reshape it so that it's rebuilt. But I think he'll need that. He's quite touching, I think, in his vulnerability as well.
Do you think there were signs that he was surprised that the viewers didn't pick up the phone to vote for him? Because he had so much hype, but even though there was like suspicions he'd be in the bottom two, do you think he was shocked that he didn't get the viewer support at home?
I think he was. I think he knows that he's got a few rough edges in learning how to dance, but I think he thought there'd be kind of natural, and his fame and that his fans would all still be there. And this is where it worries me about the ego factor, because not only will he be worried now that his fans haven't voted for him, he's also, he's going to be looking at Tony and thinking, they think I'm a worse dancer than Tony. And I love Tony. Tony is my spirit animal when it comes to dance. I feel for the guy. I mean, he's hugely entertaining. And that's the whole thing about Strictly, isn't it? He'll probably go almost right through to the final. But to watch Tony and for Matt to be thinking, okay, they think he's a better dancer, that's got to be even more crushing for him than those white trousers were.
Just on the last question on the elimination, Shirley's vote obviously wasn't required. Kay was going home, but she did say she would have saved Kay. Now, did her body language give any sign that she was telling the truth, or do you think perhaps she was just saying some comforting words to Kay?
I don't know what's going on with Shirley this season. She's kind of inherited the spirit of Bruno. Have you noticed she's out the chair and doing the dance routines like Bruno used to? I think, why don't you sit down? She never really used to do that. She started getting into some really quite congruent spats with Craig. They had quite a big fight. I mean, I know that the pointing finger might not feel like a weapon, but it is. It's you draw that, then they draw their finger out as well. And this, I mean, look at her. She's sitting there like some fortune teller. It's deeply serious. You know, I'm got my crystal ball in front of me. But when she looked up, it was very much a reproachful look with her body language, as though, no, I would have given it to Kay. And there was a sort of head tilt. It almost was implying that the others weren't right. And I don't get that, because I think the others were very right. I mean, poor Kay, she completely messed up that final dance. But there was something about her. It's as though she is now the only judge that is right. And she looked like a headmistress. She looked very strict when she delivered that. And it wasn't just that she meant it. It was as though they were in the wrong for voting for the wrong. So I'm not quite sure where she's going this season, but I think it's going to be interesting. I love a spat between the judges. They're usually fake, but I think there's a few proper riffs there this season.
Well, yeah, so they clashed with Helen and Gorka. There was a lot of mixed opinions on the judging this weekend. But Craig and Shirley clashed over Helen and Gorka, didn't they? Do you think that was genuine?
I hate to say it is, because one of the things I love about Strictly every season, and what's so good about the body language, is that it is so fake. I mean, it's pantomime normally. You know, it's fake smiles, fake tears, fake hands. And you always get this little bit of, you know, pantomime stuff between the judges, because they love the attention, you know, they like to compete with the people out there on the dance floor. But I really felt that argument was getting quite real. I've never seen Craig look quite so angry, and without doing what I call a denial ritual at the end. Often with Craig, you'll get this kind of flash of fake anger, but then he'll suddenly go back to being Craig again. But his voice changed, his body language changed, and I think I saw quite a flash, as though he had literally suddenly been made to feel really angry. And as I say, between him and Shirley, it was quite strange the way the mind stabbing fingers, and Shirley started banging her finger down on the desk. Motzi in the middle of them started doing a sort of song and dance routine to try and diffuse it. But I felt some of that was real. I'm going to be watching them for the entire run, because I think there's something going on there that is actually a bit of a genuine rift going on there, I think.
Like some backstage tension that's spilling out on screen.
Yeah, something's got up somebody's nose, and I will get to the bottom of it, and I will be the first to tell you.
So the one thing the judges did agree on was Ellie and Nikita's performance. Even Craig, who's quite tough to please, said very, very good. And they seem to have formed quite a good bond. And early in the week, like, Ellie's had like a bit of criticism and stuff from like trolls online and stuff, but it didn't seem to bother her on the dance floor. But you noticed a nice exchange between them when they were listening to the judges' feedback.
Yeah, I have to say that I had worries about this double act, mainly because Nikita, and you know, he's a lovely guy, but he's always doing that sort of matinee idol. He's got this big love with the camera going on, and he's always doing the matinee idol smile, or he'll rip his top off or something. And I thought, I'm not sure whether his ego is going to get in the way. And initially, when he was with Ellie, when they were paired off, he just wouldn't let his eye off the camera. And I thought, no, you need to focus on Ellie, which is obviously done. 4 marks. Those two have created something that created in me a physiological response when I was watching it. And I know that they talk about it, the judges, when you get goosebumps. I literally did get goosebumps watching that routine. It was so romantic, the way that they did it. And I thought, you've absolutely nailed this. If you give me goosebumps, like in the second dance that you do, fair play to you. And I loved the way that, although they ended in that position of incredibly romantic, you could see their bodies heaving. They were laughing as well. And the fact that they were both laughing, if they've got a shared humor going on there. The other thing, when they were listening to the judges' scores, I noticed that Nikita was just rubbing her neck with his hand and I think. Now, normally we're very wary about people touching our necks. You have to be very full of trust to allow somebody to do a gesture like that without moving away slightly. So that gentle neck rub, and he did it with his thumb as well, I thought they've built up a whole load of trust between them. And as we can see in the photographs now, his total focus is on Ellie. I think he must know now that he's got a chance of winning. Do you
think their connection will help them? Like, because last year Rose and Giovanni had such a strong connection off the dance floor as well. Do you think this close bond so early on will help them?
It's to be able to create that emotional bond out there on the dance floor with their body language. That will definitely help them, because we love watching that. I think we've seen certain couples that we know that it's not a romance, but it looks so romantic and it just works. And you're sitting there on a Saturday night watching it at home and you're going, oh, that's the kind of thing that always looks great. And you put that on top of good dancing, which they also do. Definitely. I mean, they've still got to get tested. There's lots of different dances coming up, but that was genuinely sublime. And I think I can understand why people said that it made them cry. They weren't crying out of it. It would be like happy tears. It would be watching that romantic display out there on the dance floor. Wonderful. Really, really good.
So while the judges agreed on Ellie's performance, they were conflicted again with Ellie Taylor's and Johannes's performance. The feedback was quite mixed, and you picked up on the couple's responses to the judges' feedback. And how do you think Ellie, because she's a comedian and an actress and she's obviously outgoing and confident, how do you think she took the criticism alongside the praise?
I mean, Ellie is a great body language giver. I mean, we saw in the first week, she was shocked and collapsing, and she does all these wonderful facial expressions. She's never understated when it comes to body language, but in a good way, because it all looks quite genuinely in line with her emotions as well. I love these two together. I think they look so elegant. And they also last week did create what felt like a whole Hollywood musical with their body language out there on the dance floor. I thought they were brilliant this week. Ellie was a lot more static, because obviously she was playing this sort of Spanish character, whatever it is, but you could see that she's lost that being surprised. She'd lost the kind of humility, and I think she was getting overcrushed a little bit by Shirley, I think it was, and you could see there was a slight lower jaw jut. There was a slight coldness that appeared in her eyes. And I felt that she felt that that was rather unfair, which I believe that it was. She didn't like the criticism, and I think perhaps because she felt that it was unjust. And you could see with him as well. I mean, Johannes is such a loyal partner. His smile went from slightly upturned to a downturned smile. So it was his lips clamped together, and then they dropped down. And you could see both of them later on performing a tongue poke ritual. They both stuck their tongues out, not like a kid would.
Yeah.
But the tip of the tongue came out, and that relates to a baby rejecting food. It's a signal of disgust and rejection, and they both did it as well. So I think they were really, really genuinely wounded by what they were hearing.
Do you think that that'll spur them on for next week? Did they show like a bit of a fighter energy, or do you think she'll take a knock from this criticism?
It can always go one of two ways. Sometimes people, if they've already got low self-esteem, and I think we saw it a bit with Kay. Kay did kind of crumple. It was almost like she'd been found out. I knew I couldn't dance, which is a shame because she can. If it affects Ellie in that way, that she believes, oh, they've obviously sussed me, I can't dance, I am as bad as they say, that would be bad. But looking at her body language, I'm quite optimistic that it might have given her a little bit more fight. She was very submissive on week one in a way. She was very good fun, but she was so shocked that anybody might like what she was doing. I like the fact that she was rather annoyed by the fact that somebody was criticizing her this week, and it might just make her fight back next week. And I think that's what I would like to see from her, and I'm sure that's what Johannes will have been trying to invest in her as well, to sort of unleash a little bit of anger just to get that dancer's fire for next week.
And it's movie week next week, and I think them two will have something very good up their sleeves. Back to Helen and Gorka. Obviously, the judges had a little kick-off about them, and you spotted something on the balcony afterwards where she's pointed at him and they're pulling faces. I want to touch on that, but I also want to... Helen obviously went through a marriage breakup earlier this year, and she's revealed that Strictly was her chance to have fun, and it's like something new and good from the year. Do you think her body language is showing any signs that she's getting a new lease of life? She's enjoying life again?
I think it is, but also I'm seeing mixed emotions from her. And I think what we're looking at is somebody who, yes, it is helping, and it's helping with confidence. And, she's getting a lot of praise, and she looks amazing, and her dances are excellent. And she's got Gorka, who is... they're almost twinned, those two. I think they are the most well-suited couple. They're very mirrored with their body language. They're a good height together. They seem to move and think alike. So yes, in a way, but I think, as we all know, there's also signs that there's insecurity showing there as well. You know, she'll be very smiley, but she can look very different, slightly upset. Her face will drop a little bit. And I was very interested in their relationship because, in a way, they kind of bonded very quickly. But what I noticed when she was up on the balcony on Saturday, there was something a little bit brittle going on there. It was fun and it was banter, but she kept sort of pointing to Gorka a little bit and sort of, oh, he's told me this, he's told me that. And it was a little bit dismissive in a way. Usually by this stage, which is early on in the competition, the celebrities are putty in the hands of their dance pros. They're so wonderful, I'm doing everything that I'm told to do. So with her, it just seems that they've got to the banter stage a little bit quickly. It's something that Rose got to, but quite late on in the competition, and it was mutual banter. But I'm not quite sure what's happening here, and I hope it doesn't mean that it's going to lead to any bickering backstage. They look very, very close in terms of friendship, but also maybe taking that a little bit, you know, when you start going, oh, this is what he's doing. She made some comment about the fact, oh, it's like people that like looking in the mirror a lot, and he pulled a face. I know it's funny and it's fun, but I'd rather have seen that a few weeks into the competition. And at the moment, I do like the gush at the moment. Oh, they're so wonderful. They're telling me what to do and everything like that. So, you know, if you look at Will and Nancy, when Nancy speaks, Will is like a little puppy. He absolutely stares at her. And, you know, he's taking all of his instruction from her. And I feel with Helen, she's maybe moving away a little bit. So it's good in terms of her confidence. But I hope that lasts. And I hope the fun stays fun and the banter stays banter.
It'll be very telling over the next few weeks if it's something they've got to a really good point very early on, or there's been a clash already and it might spill out onto the dance floor.
I think he's quite protect. I think he understands. You know, I've watched him watching her, and he's very quick to reassure her, and you know, he seems to be very supportive and very caring. So hopefully it will work wonderfully well, and they do dance beautifully well together.
Yeah. Kim Marsh and her partner, they've been doing all right on the dance floor, saved by the viewers as well. You spotted a few snaps in rehearsals where he's quite placing her hands on his hips and stuff, and they seem quite close as they were listening to the feedback of other couples. Do you think they're gelling well together?
I think they're interesting. They came in sort of saying that they already knew one another and that they were existing friends, and that was great. I noticed that from the moment they met, Kim kind of put her hands on her hips. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, except that it's a very challenging gesture. It's called pit bearing. And normally when you're talking to somebody and their hands go on their hips, it means that they're going to have a bit of a go at you or take you on or challenge you or whatever. It's called in the animal kingdom a state of aggressive arousal. And I don't mean that she's being aggressive, but it's when an animal makes itself look a bit bigger, so that it doesn't feel quite so intimidated by the other animal. And I'm fascinated by that because she does it in rehearsal with him. She's doing it when they finish their dance routine as well. I would imagine that Kim's a very strong character. She looks as though she would actually take no nonsense. I know she says she's very nervous with the dances, and I would absolutely get that. But you've also got that with this strong character. So I'm wondering how Gorka is handling that. And there was a moment that I saw when they're up on the balcony where he was almost sort of stroking her torso. They're in the background. It's almost like he's doing subliminal calming rituals on her. But that could turn into quite a good power balance between those two, a bit of a seesaw. I'm interested to see how this one pans out over the weeks.
So because they've obviously got a pre-existing friendship, and I was thinking maybe before Kim did Strictly, she was the more superior one in the friendship, the bigger star power, and the roles are reversed now. He's the one who's in control essentially with leading the dancing and stuff, and maybe that's a struggle between them.
Oh, I don't need to say it. Your psychology says And she's also been in a soap. And I've noticed in all the reality shows, some of the strongest characters have come from the soaps when they come in. They've usually had to sort of get through a pecking order when they work on a soap quite regularly. So although Kim is talking about being nervous, and I do get that, I think there is also this stronger version of Kim. And yeah, it's been a bit of a tilt in status and power between the two of them. And it will be, I mean, you know, he's obviously been on her program as a guest, and the person that's the presenter, as we all know, is always seen as quite godlike on those shows. Suddenly she's having to do what he's telling her. There could be some fire going on there, something a bit fiery, I don't know, but again, I will keep my eye on that one.
Well, it's movie week next week, so we'll just finish with, did you spot any signs anyone's particularly nervous ahead of movie week, or anyone who seems very confident going into next week?
I think they all go, and this is always an example of the fakeness that we get. Oh, I'm so excited to do movie week. The ones that I actually thought, Jade and Karen, I thought they were going to do the lift from, do you remember that she said when they first paired up, she wanted to do the dance routine from Dirty Dancing, where you lift the partner up. And when I heard the music, I got really excited because I thought this is going to be great if they're going to do that. But then it's not that dance music, is it? So I think they're not, but she clearly can't wait to do that. Fleur and Vito, throw any costume at them, you know, they're going to love it. The one that I think, one of my favorite pro dancers, I always love watching Katya, and she will never show fear. You know, she over exaggerates. She will drag Tony through every routine. I mean, she even picked him up at the end of My Old Man's a Dustman. I would imagine that somewhere in her mind there must be a flicker of fear, because when you've already picked up your 7-foot dance partner to carry them, to get votes, and thrown yourself in a dustbin and everything, she must be trying to work out how she can top that for next week. So it didn't show us fear, but I reckon Katya is the one that probably internally will be a little bit more fearful. I mean, she'll have him throwing her in the air or something, whatever. Just watch. My tip is anybody that gets lowered from the ceiling on something is probably going to get eliminated, because that means that they're not a good dancer. So when they come down from the ceiling, it's the longer they can keep them off the floor for, the better. Tony's already done that, but I think he might have an even bigger drop.
I think we might have a lot more time with Tony, so we can see what Kathy will have to resort to.
Listen, I was an Arsenal fan, so, you know, as long as he can stay in that show, the better. And who knows, he might turn out to be a good dancer.
He might show good development. Okay, so we'll catch up. So we'll find out over the weekend, and we'll catch up again next week.
Can't wait. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.